Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning into the Upside Strength podcast, your number one fitness reference in Switzerland. Today on the podcast, we have Andreas Gabauer. He's a full-time personal trainer in Lausanne. He specializes in prehab, rehab, strength training, and fascial strength therapy. Andreas has over 8 years of experience and more than 50 continuing education seminars attended worldwide. He has an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and strives to provide the best and most up-to-date information to all his clients. And just thanks for helping on the call.
Thank you very much for having me, Sean.
I forget exactly how we connected at first. I know it was on Instagram. And all I remember is looking at your stories, and all I saw was quality coaching, and then you learning, and then you eating good food, and then rinse and repeat. And
That's it, yeah.
Fuck, I need to talk to this guy at some point. So I'm glad that it took a while. It took a while to get here, but I'm glad we can finally talk.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad to be here as well, and happy to have a chat with you as well, for sure.
So tell us a little bit, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you and maybe where you came from, where you grew up, and then how your trajectory coming into personal training. How do you get to where you are?
Sure. Okay, cool. So, I was born in Germany. I grew up in Asia for a few years. As a child, I went to an American school just to work with my parents. They basically traveled the world. They took us with, of course. Mm-hmm. Of course, going to school, doing the exams, stuff like that in Germany then. Mm-hmm. We went from Asia back to Germany just to finish off school and to learn the language as well, because we didn't speak it in the beginning when we were like smaller. And of course, then the question came up, what would you like to do with your life? For me, I started out in the hotel industry because my father and my parents, they've been there since 45 years plus in that industry. So for me, it was obvious, like, okay, I want to do that. I want to be like my father. I want to go into the hotel, just starting work at the bottom and just like work your way all the way up until you're a manager. And that's going to be the ideal life for me.
Just play the ladder game, right?
That's it. That was my ideal way of thinking my life would be. It changed a lot, to be honest. I started out with 15. I started a 3 years apprenticeship in Austria in a hotel, to learn the basics. I learned everything over kitchen, reception, housekeeping, everything that's necessary for the hotel. Then from there, it was like in a 4-star hotel. I went to the luxury segment to Frankfurt. Started as a concierge, 5-star houses, and we had international clients from all the world, and did that for roughly 4 years plus minus in Frankfurt. The first 2 years actually were cool. You work a lot, you're motivated, and everything works out well. But then I think once in life there is this moment where you have less motivation, unfortunately, for what you do, and you start like really asking yourself the question, why? Why is this happening to me? What's wrong? What's just not going on? So I started off, of course, I did a lot of sports when I was smaller, as everybody did in general. But that was not my main motivation of being a coach in general. I wanted to change my life, meaning I was highly unhappy with what I was doing. I was highly unmotivated, unfortunately, with what I was doing. That's why I did a radical change, actually, and changed the industry, basically. So from Frankfurt, I started off doing like coach certification in Germany, getting interested into coaching and all things like anatomy and so on and so on. And then I was like, okay, I'm here now in Germany. I did a few courses. I'm highly unhappy with the environment I'm in. So let's just change the land. So I was like, okay, let's go to Switzerland. I'm going to learn French. I'm going to still work in the hotel. Maybe the motivation will come back. You're going to have other people around you. You're going to have a new environment. So maybe the motivation will just come, and you're going to be like, wow, it was just like a small drop off. So I went to Switzerland. That was now 5.5 years ago. I started working in a hotel as well in Montreux, and it was cool for like a year. And then basically the same thing came back, the same kind of unmotivation. I was tired of doing the job, of getting up in the morning, no motivation of doing anything, actually. And in my head, I was saying to myself, I need to do a change because I cannot do. I mean, now I'm 28 years. That was like 5 years ago, so I'll be 23. I don't want to live like that my whole life. Basically, like going up, don't liking what I do, having no motivation, being tired, and so on and so on. And then I basically quit the job. I went all in. I quit the job. I did CrossFit here in Puidu, in CrossFit Rivera. A few years ago, I started with that, and I just asked the head coach, "Listen, can I start coaching? Would that be an option for you?" Luckily, he said yes. I started coaching. I quit my job, and that was basically the start of the story. How I started coaching, and I just developed everything until now, basically.
If
It's a
you had,
radical change.
if you had an advice, because I think there's a lot of people in the situation that you were in, and I think I was in as well before I made that
Yeah,
transition. I wasn't like personal trainer right out of the gate.
yeah.
You had a couple pieces of advice for people who want to be personal trainers but are not yet. How do
hmm
you make that transition successfully?
Well, for me, it was to have a certain base of work in the gym here, like plus minus 50% to have like a basic salary, just to be able to pay bills, stuff like that, do a few education things. Um, and then was basically, I mean, I spent up a little bit of money. It was not a lot. For me, it was no risk, no fun, meaning going all in. I mean, I don't have a family, I don't have children. I don't have the risk of all of that. So I was like, if I don't have any money, there's always a solution. But I was in my head, I was quite radical. No plan B, as Arnold Schwarzenegger loves to say. There is no plan B. And I started out. It's tough. Honestly, the first 1-2 years they were hard. You cannot pay your bills. You're stressed out because there is no money there. You coach, you gain experience, and you just learn. You go to courses, you develop your kind of approach and system, and you try to apply it. The advice, maybe it's quite radical, but if you really want to do it, go for it without thinking a lot of like what can happen, because there is always a solution to actually everything. I started out, I didn't even speak French when I started out. Now I'm fluently in French. I give seminars in French. So there's like a lot of barriers you need to overcome. Of course, you're afraid of a lot of things. I've been afraid of starting out as well, but just do it. Have the courage of doing it and changing something in your life. That can be in your work, that can be in sports, nutrition, whatever you want to do. You need to get going. A lot of people, they want to do something, but they don't move. They don't do anything about it. So you really just need to start. Be quite maybe financially assured a little bit, but if you really like what you do, if you know what you're doing, then the success generally will come, in my opinion, 100%.
I like that. That's good advice.
Yeah.
When you started out, did you have any particular, or what areas of interest did you have, and how did that evolve throughout your career as a personal trainer?
Well, when I started out, I was into CrossFit training. I really liked the approach with barbells, cardio, everything, gymnastics. That was cool. Then it started out with like seminars, like how to get people stronger, how to do strength coaching, structured strength training over months and years, how to progress people actually. That was my main interest that I had. And I tried to sort out how could that fit into an environment like CrossFit, where people do a lot of high intensity stuff, and follow their programmings in the box. So it was, honestly, it was like a fight for 2 years. I didn't know if that's useful, what I want to do. But then I stopped CrossFit a little bit. I started to apply what I learned, basically. I started to train like that, what I learned, just have the effect on myself. And then from there, I was like, okay, that's what I want to do, because I saw a lot more results for myself. There was a structure inside. I felt better. And that's what I then applied to clients and try to have like this kind of, okay, they go to CrossFit, but what kind of volume do they need? How can I still be able to make them progress in a strength training environment with CrossFit next to it? Now, 5 years later, it's always, you're searching for the right thing. But I think it works out well, and you will need to search. You will need to search a lot, why you do stuff, what you do. You need to do it first to yourself before you give it to people, and see if it works in reality, basically. You know, and that was like the main fight of finding kind of a system and putting it a little bit into the CrossFit world. You know, like doing why should I do biceps curls in CrossFit?
Yeah.
You know, like 5 years ago, nobody did them. Now everybody's doing them because there are huge benefits. You know, that was quite a fight actually. Like we don't want to have any fitness, whatever, no machines. And now step by step, they see the advantage of structured strength training for their sport.
Yeah.
And that's cool actually. That's quite satisfying. And I think it's going to go a long way. We're still like starting out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, but that's quite cool actually. You just got to keep going as well as people don't think it's effective, because keep going, get them the results, and the people will speak about it basically.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like if you read the CrossFit manifesto, the first one, the original, there's very little things that I can't agree with in that say few pages. But I feel like from the beginning there was maybe the long-term athlete development was not included in that framework. It sounds, thinking about it now, it sounds like it's a great overall model for like maintenance. But if you're actually looking at performance, long-term development, there's not much there. So maybe the CrossFit world was lacking this at the beginning, and now they're realizing that if people want to really push the limits like people are doing now and compete and get better over years, which it takes to get to those levels, you need to have that long-term development model. That I don't know, did you read any of the Russian stuff and all of those? I'm sure you're familiar with the classic.
Yeah, like Prehabilitation, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like periodization, that will come into play 100%. But it really depends. I mean, if the people coming to personal training and they are in other boxes, or you know, where you don't have access to their actual programming, it's quite hard to figure it out. But that's where you really need to communicate with the client and see what they're doing, what are their weak links, what's the kind of volume per week, are they in a squat cycle or snatching or whatever. So it comes down to a lot of communication, because a lot of people go 3 times per week or even 4 or 5 times to CrossFit. Maybe it's a lot. A lot of people don't adapt really good to it because they just do too much. So you just need to have an honest conversation with the people and say, hey, listen, you wanna have success, progression over long term. That's cool, but you need to cut out volume. You need to get stronger structurally stronger for yourself to be able to push harder if you want to in CrossFit or whatever. And that was like the main as well. It's still a challenge because people are coming from all over Switzerland, from all other boxes. They're in programmings with other coaches, and you don't know how they work, why they do stuff. So you want to communicate with the client. That comes down to pure communication and honest communication with your client at the end of the day.
Do you have a lot of experience with getting a new client on, cutting their volume down, and then seeing their progress explode?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Oh, it's amazing. Like a lot of people came in the first place, unfortunately, when I started out for rehab stuff because they were injured. That could have been through too much training volume, a movement that was not good. And they saw the progress on themselves. You know, if you explain that, it's maybe logical for them. But if they don't see it on themselves, they will think, or they will not be convinced that it really works. You know what I mean? So basically, instead of talking, explaining, they came into PT. We trained to get them stronger. They did a little bit of CrossFit next, and they saw basically their numbers, their performance exploding on their own eyes. And that's where they said, like, wow, cool, it really does work. Because you don't see it actually online. You only see online a lot of people that do the workout. They're lying down on the floor each day, giving 120%. That's what they see. That's what they think is effective. But that's why you really got to experience it with them personally. And that's where they see the progress, the results, and then they really believe you. It always comes down to that. And if they don't believe it, they got to try it. If they don't do it, it's okay for me as well. You know, I mean, everybody's approach anyway.
Yeah, I think it's getting more and more popular now, but I think it's worth pointing out what you just said about you see
Mm,
people lying on the floor and dying all the time, or dying, quote unquote,
mm,
after workouts, CrossFit
yeah,
workouts uh, in that situation. But if you actually look at the kind of work that they do throughout the week, there's very
yeah,
few pieces that are maximal effort, kind of a competition testing setting. A lot of it is,
that's it.
submaximal work on technique, work on breathing, work on movement, work on transitions, work on strength, work on
Yeah,
monostructural stuff. And then sometimes they hit the big stuff. And that's
that's
obviously
it.
what you see. But can you maybe educate people that aren't in that space yet? Maybe the kind of, I don't want to say the high level, but maybe a more sound approach to CrossFit training. Can you tell people about how it's structured, and so that people don't think that it's 2 workouts a day, 7 days a week, and
Mm,
you're about to puke every single time because of how hard it is?
that's it. Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, it's that no pain, no gain attitude. Of course, we need to train. We need to push our boundaries a little bit, but not all the time. But I mean, a lot of people think, unfortunately, through the industry or through online platforms, what they see online, Facebook, Instagram, that you always need to push hard to have results. But that's just not the case. And I think that's one of the biggest myths around in the industry still. Um, to be able to educate people to say, listen, if you do less volume, if you stress out your body a little bit less because you're stressed out already in your private life, stress private life comes into play, family, work, whatever. They come into the gym, they blow their brains out, stress still on top. So they're basically in this kind of stress cycle all the time, that there is no progress, even maybe physical burnout. It can be still up to an injury because they're just not able to recover from what they're doing. And that's quite sad actually. But people are changing slowly, step by step. You see as well all those CrossFit athletes online. They now, with a few months, you see they do a lot of more strength training. They're less into this kind of high intensity, and that's quite cool as well because the people reflect to them. It's like, okay, I want to be like her or like him, so I do what they do. That's not the best thing. And they're changing actually, to be honest. You see online less kind of no pain, no gain, but more a little bit more intelligent approach. So the people are like, okay, if they do it, then it will work. And that's quite cool as well. So we'll see where it leads, to be honest. But it's going a good direction, but kind of slow, step by step. And we'll see.
What's still missing from the CrossFit model as it's practiced most widely now?
In my opinion, it is a first consultation with each client. Being to have what's happening at the moment. How is their mobility? How is their stability? What's going on? Injury history. I think that's missing a lot because they come, that's cool, they train directly. Maybe you see like, okay, you're here and you need to do several things to be there. I think that's one huge part missing at the moment still. I think in a lot of boxes, even gyms, just have kind of the evaluation of the client to see like what are they capable of doing instead of just throwing them in and then seeing how it works out. So it comes down to the first contact with the client, in my opinion, because then you know how you should act on a long term, basically. And that's a huge thing. Nobody does it. Unfortunately, only in PT, I do it a lot with like everybody that comes, first hour, medical history, what's going on, and so on and so on. That's quite important. And that's a missing link, in my opinion, 100%.
So maybe talk about this a little more. What's your process with new clients?
Mm-hmm.
Get them in.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look at before you actually, I was going to say throw them under the bus. That's not what you do. But
Yeah.
before you get them to work, what's
Yeah.
important to you?
Well, for me, it's important to as well to get them know, first of all, to see if I connect to the client or if they connect to me, meaning if we've got a good feeling to each other. Because I think an important thing in personal training as well over long term is that you have a good feeling with your client. They do not stress you out, that you feel comfortable with them and they feel comfortable with you so you can work on a motivating basis. And that comes down to the red carpet policy. For example, red carpet policy, I read it in the book of Book Yourself Solid. That was a nice book. And he was saying you only want the client in your training that you deserve or that you really feel comfortable with. And if that means maybe you got to have honest conversations with some clients and tell them to stop now or to search another coach or whatever. But in the end, it comes down, first of all, to how do I feel with him. If it's sympathetic, if he or she is motivated, then that's a very good place to start. And then we just go through general stuff. How is their training history? Did they already train or not? What kind of sports did they do in their entire life? Injury history. Is anything going on? Mobility restrictions, mobility tests, strength tests. What kind of experience do they have with strength training actually? Because a lot of them that start, they didn't do anything and they start from scratch, from zero. Just already, if you know that will give you a huge indication what you can and will do with them directly in the phase 1, for example. And that's like one. It's like really just an honest conversation. Like we're just communicating now. It's the same thing. How are you doing? What's going on? What's your goal? What happened in your life? How is your daily life? What's your work? How are your working hours? Your sleep? How do you eat? Do you eat regularly? Do you eat protein? Are you vegan? Yes, no. It all depends actually. And that's like the first consultation to get the most information to be able to work efficiently with the client.
Have you ever refused to work with clients because from the get-go you knew it wasn't going to click, or maybe you weren't the right person for them? Or
100%. Yeah, I mean, it was hard in the beginning. It's hard because you need. I have this bill here. I need the money, so I should take them. But you just got to be honest to yourself. And yes, I refused already one, 2 clients as well. In training, I had then conversations with them and said, listen, it's not going to work out. You need to search somewhere else. And if you explain them why and what's happening, they generally understand it as well. It's not like a rude attitude. 100%. Those are conversations every personal trainer will definitely have once in their life, 100%. And then ideally, it's not all the time. It's maybe once. Meet happened with 2 clients now the last 3-4 years. So it's not on a regular basis, because if people know what you do, you attract people who are, who like your kind of approach. That's as well important, So you're not going to always have clients that you don't want to have in here in general.
So what kind of people come to you? What are you known for? What are you seeked out?
Yeah.
Well, is that the right word? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it started out with a lot of rehab in the beginning. Now it's like really general population from child to 70 plus years. For me, the most important is that the people are motivated, and motivated, the most important, over long term. I don't want anyone in here that comes to I want to do 2-3 months and that's it. That's not my goal with clients, because it's a long-term process in training, nutrition, whatever you want, to get the goals or to work efficiently. So if somebody comes only for a short term, I generally refuse, unfortunately.
Do you have a minimum commitment time for your clients?
At least 4 months, minimum.
Okay.
Under 4 months, there's nothing going to happen. A lot of them come just for a consultation to get like tips how to structure the training and so on. That's totally fine, and that's good. That's nice. But I don't focus on that. I really focus on long-term clients. So motivated and willing to go the longer way. That's the most important as well. Because then you're going to have results with them as well. They're not going to stop after 2 months because it's too stressful or something doesn't work out in general.
You said that you kind of tested and tried a lot of the methods that you now apply to your clients. What does your training look like right now at the moment?
Cool. Well, me in general, I change my coach every year. So since 4 years, I train really regularly and structured on a structured basis actually. And each year I change to get, first of all, to get to know their approach, to get to know their kind of methods or training approaches that they're using. And at the moment for me, actually it's 4 times per week, 1 hour. So only 4 hours per week, not more. It's with Tom Hibbert. He's in Southampton in England now since a few months. I'm still going to continue still until mid 2020. Then I'm going to look for another coach in general. And it's structured strength training and a little bit of conditioning energy system, but just really how getting stronger over long-term basis, like, periodization, looking at methods that he's doing just to learn really to try it first and then maybe apply it to clients that have necessity for doing it as well. That's my training at the moment. It's basics first, a little bit of, how do you say, high intensity work, but a lot of basics, getting around the big lifts, getting stronger on the weak link. And that 4 times per week, 1 hour, that's it.
I think
it's quite simple, but efficient.
It's important for people to hear that, because often people think that we're personal trainers, we spend our life in the gym and all we do is train as well. But I mean, there comes a time, I remember for myself, when I had less clients, I trained more, or when I had certain goals, I trained more. And then sometimes the emphasis shifts and you go from training 10 to 12 hours a week down to 2 or 3 or 4 if you can. And it's really just to maintain yourself and not crumble.
That's it. I mean, as well, with 4 hours per week, you can progress significantly over a long term. And you don't need to train twice per week, 5 times per week, and then weekends to go out and do runs and whatever. It's not necessary in general for the general population because they don't have any time for it anyways. But doing less is sometimes more in general.
Do you use that principle with your, not the less is more principle, but the kind of flexibility in the program principle with your clients? Insofar as I think a lot of people think, okay, if I commit to this and I can do 3 times a week now, it's got to be 3 times a week for the rest of my life. But I think people forget that their lives are not, they're not always the same. They're going to change.
That's it,
Work might change, family stuff, personal stuff. And that what they plan for today will inevitably have to change one day. They're not professional athletes. They can't just train exactly when they want exactly. So how do you get clients to I feel like wrestle with that? Because a lot of the times they feel pressure to just do exactly what we ask them to do. And if they deviate just a tiny bit, even for very good reason, they feel terrible. How do you get them to understand that this is okay?
Well, I mean, it's okay. It's as well my experience. I tell them, like, listen, that's my training now. Last week I was sick, so I did 1 rep less, or I cut it in half, or I even didn't go to train, and it's totally fine. That's the first thing that they see as well, that we're only humans as well. We change our training. We need to stay flexible in our training. And if they have somebody, they see it. That's really the first thing. Like, okay, they visualize that the other people, that it doesn't work 100% all the time. That's the first step. And I mean, I'm very strict with training frequency, meaning if somebody has specific goals, I'm honest with them. Like, listen, you want to, I don't know, lose 20 kilos. You want to gain on muscle mass the next 4 months, but you only want to train once per week. That's cool, but it's not going to happen. That's a well, just to be honest, to say, like, specific goals need specific measures to really be able to have a progression. So if somebody comes over long term, general population just wants to feel better, look a little bit better, but not like having specific goals twice per week, maybe 3 times if they're really motivated, is cool. And work comes in, it happens. They excuse themselves. I say, like, listen, it's okay. It doesn't change anything. We're just going to go on to next week, to get them the pressure off, because they've got the pressure at work, family pressure. They need to pay their bills, everything that comes into mind. And if you put a pressure on them in the gym as well, it will not work out, not over long term. So flexible in programming is always necessary. And they understand that quite fast, actually, because you just explain it to them. And that's a new thing, like, just communicate with your client. That's exactly how it works. And then they understand it. They're less stressed out. And if something happens or they're on vacation, they know it's totally fine, because it happens. I mean, that's life, you cannot structure everything around training. It's just not possible for them,
How do you optimize training hours with your clients?
Cool. Well, I've got a general warm-up that every client does when they come. So they come 5 to 10 minutes earlier, they get changed. They warm themselves. That's a general warm-up for everyone. So they do something, they get to move, activate their muscles, everything else. And then When it's time, they're warm. I do a specific warm up for their kind of problem, whatever there is, and then we go to training. So meaning they're already like warmed up before we start, so we can get faster. We got more time in the hour we have. That's the first thing. Second thing to optimize is choosing the weight they will take in advance. I've got my programming here with each client. I know what they did the last session. I know what they should do today. So I put the weight in there. So everything is like fluid. They warm up. Okay. First round, that weight, 30 kilo. Then we go to 32 and a half, then 35. And so everything is planned to be the most efficient possible in 1 hour. 1 hour goes very fast, actually. So every pauses are planned. Weight is planned. Their general warm up is planned. Everything is planned in advance. So they come, they don't think about anything. They train and they go back home. That's the first, especially when you have like multiple personal trainings, like 1 hour after another. To optimize, the people need to warm up themselves. They need to be like self-disciplined of doing it. And then it's just more efficient for yourself as well. Those are the two main things. They warm up, the hours they come are fixed in advance. And ideally each day, each week, the same hour. So there's no changing. So everything is reserved. They come, warm up, train, and go back home or to work, wherever. So warming up, micro periodization, like choosing the weights for their training, and fixing their hours. Those are the three main things you need to do, because otherwise you're going to lose yourself in your kind of agenda, and it's going to be a huge mess. These are just three main things to optimize the fluidity of your personal trainings. And that's what you want as well, because then yourself are less stressed out. Because if you train someone and the guy is waiting in front of you, that stresses out as well. So that's not optimal as well, Yeah.
When it comes to, you talk about progression quite a bit. How do you progress a beginner, or how do you progress an advanced client or athlete, or is it pretty much the same? Can you talk about this a little bit?
Sure. I mean, there are foundational movements that I think each client should master. That can be a squat, deadlift, press overhead, military press, bench press, of course, pull-ups. Those movements are like the main goals. And progressing is quite simple for everyone, because it's like in school, everybody needs to have the first grade, then second grade, third grade to go on to the fourth grade. It's the same thing in strength training. That's like one of the mentors once, Wolfgang Unzelt, he told me. He comes from Charles Poliquin. He's very, very known now in the world. And he said, like, basics first. Everybody goes through the basics in general. It doesn't matter if he's a high-level athlete, or he trains for a long time, or he just starts out. Because high-level athletes, in much cases, they need the basics much more than anyone else, for example. So basics are easy. Getting the posterior chain strong, getting their lower back strong and conditioned. If they've got injuries somewhere, of course, got to take a look at that, but a stronger upper back, getting them strong unilaterally on one leg, then going on to bilateral movements. And they need to progress as well in like tempo, like the speed of the movement, to get conscience, like what's happening. They should feel, everybody should feel like what's happening when I do this movement. If you do a biceps curl and you feel it somewhere down in your small toe, it doesn't work out, That's just the same thing. So basics are the same for everyone. And it depends on the level, how fast the basics will progress into dynamic movements or not. So getting everything stronger, getting a solid base. For a lot of people, it takes at least 2, 3, 4 months. And then when the base is there and they've been regularly with the training, then you can do some special stuff. You can go over to German body comp, fat loss, more into powerlifting if somebody wants to. Then you can maybe go into like Olympic weightlifting variations, like plyometric stuff, if the base is there, because then they're just more efficient, in my opinion. So basics are the same for everyone in general. Everybody starts a little bit differently, but everybody needs to go through the first 2, 3, 4 grades to be able to progress even faster.
I'm sure there's many of them, considering how much education you've gone through, but what are the main things that you believed at the beginning as a trainer, and that you now believe the opposite, or you don't believe in anymore? You talk about that.
Sure. Well, for me, when I started out, I believed, unfortunately, as well in this no pain, no gain. So meaning always all out, and you need to sweat and puke, unfortunately, to be efficient. And that was the main thing that changed actually the last 7, 8 years, to see, because I went to a lot of coaches that have already their gyms, that have their business running, to see how they work. I went there, I paid them for it, won internships, and I saw how they work, how basic the work is, but that efficient. And that's where it was like a whole changement in my mind. Like, okay, you don't need to be wiped out every session to have success in training. That was the first thing. Second thing for me, I think, of course, everybody started out, do not push your knees over your toes when you squat. Everybody heard it, unfortunately.
Sure.
The clients hear it. It's still teach as well. When I was back in the days in Germany, I did like the basic kind of education. It was teach as well. So you need to stick to it because you need the certification.
Yeah.
But then you see directly changes in training, because it just doesn't work out when you squat or when you do Olympic weightlifting. It is not possible to keep your knees behind your shoulders. And then, those are the two big main things that changed a lot. And then it came down to really basics first. Basics first. In each seminar I've been, everybody starts with the basics. Those three things. Nothing special, nothing fancy, nothing hopping around. What you see on Instagram, everything basics. That was hard to learn, because all your life you see crazy stuff and you go all out, and to change that, it takes a long time, especially in your coaching. Because if you do something totally different than everybody sees, than everybody does, in your head you're like, okay, the people are not going to come because I do something different. They don't think it works, So it's quite hard to deal with that in the beginning, but you need to stick to it. If you know it's the right thing that you're doing, it will work out, and the people will come. Maybe it takes a year or two, it doesn't matter, but they will come to you 100%. Yeah, those are the three main things for me.
The reserve of trying to do the right thing, and I know exactly what you mean, in the sense that that what they need is the foundational work and the basics, and they need to start where they're at, and they don't need the fancy stuff that they think they need. And so it's just about being confident enough in what you know and how you do things, and being able to explain to them that they're going to have to be patient, and that those cool things that they see, they're not what they need to reach their goals.
That's it.
They're not something that they can actually do now without any consequences or drawbacks, and that they need to stick to the basic stuff, and that's what's going to get them to where they want.
That's it. But a lot of people, they see it then when they start. They don't believe it. They start. They see the difference. They look at me like, holy shit, what happened? Okay, cool. And then it rolls, and then it's just results speaking for themselves. The people start talking like, hey, I've been to this guy and he did this and this, like totally different and mind-blowing, basic, really basic but efficient, and wow. And then it starts talking, and that's basically your main marketing as well. 100%. I mean, of course, online you do your stuff, you explain what you do, you explain why you do stuff, so the people see, or they how do you say, they comprend.
They comprehend, they connect.
Yeah, that they know why they do certain things, and if they understand the why behind an exercise or their training phase, then they're more motivated, because that will give them or bring them nearer to the goal even faster. The why. Because if somebody comes in, just does an hour of hopping around, doesn't know why, it's maybe less efficient than knowing why he does this now at this specific moment. And that as well. They need to understand that as well. Basic.
Over your many years of coaching, who's had the most influence on you and how you do things?
Cool. I mean, I've seen a lot of coaches the last years. I always pick the things like that are efficient for me, or that I can apply to in my kind of setup that I have at the moment. The guy that had the most influence on me is Marius. He is here in Switzerland, actually, in Solothurn. with continuum strength. He started out in his basement, basically. Now he's got a gym over 250 square meters, the best equipment. He's got 150 PTs per week, 5 coaches, and that like straight over 4 or 5 years, and still ongoing. And I met him 5 years ago in a seminar, in a boot camp. He did the same kind of education that I did, and I went to him, did boot camps. I saw how he worked. Is it my type of working? You know, do I like that? Do I like him already? Do I connect with him? Do I like his kind of style, how he does stuff? And it took me like 3-4 years, and now since 1 year, I made a mentorship program where I'm gonna be there. I'm there actually once per month over 2 years, and he's helping me in developing business, doing my, if I have questions on programming, clients, everything. And that's the guy who influenced me a lot in what I do now or how I do stuff. But it took me over 3-4 years to be really sure, like, okay, I want to work like he does. And that's Marius from Continuum Strength. He's the most influenced at the moment in my kind of coaching, how I do stuff. It's going to be until end of this year, and then we're going to see what happens. But I think a mentor or somebody who gives you a direction is quite important in the fitness industry in general. Yeah.
What's one thing you'd like to see more in the fitness industry today?
Well, for me, what I like to see more is progressing or like tracking progress. Meaning, a lot of people, trainers should write down the weights their clients use. A lot of trainers don't do it. They don't track the programs. They don't know why they're applying now this kind of program. They maybe, unfortunately, even forgot what they did last week with them, and that's quite sad. So we're like progressing clients or tracking clients' progress. That's the most important. That's what I would like to see a lot more often, because you just don't see it anywhere. The people don't write down what they do, which weight they take. Neither a lot of coaches, and that's the first thing that should change a lot, is writing down everything their clients do and starting with the first consultation to get to know the client. First 2 things that are quite important.
And then what's one thing you'd like to see less often in the fitness industry?
Less a radical approach, less the things like you have the magic pill or the fat burner supplement or the Juice Plus Herbalife. I don't know what. All this kind of short-term approaches, they should really be banned out, because it is a long-term process for everyone, and people should commit to it, because it's a lifelong journey actually, if you want so. So that's the thing I really would like to see less, is this kind of 2 months you're gonna be here, radical this and radical diet and radical sorry for the word, but that's the thing. That's a thing that really should disappear in the fitness industry. It will not, of course, but we can try to educate our clients a little bit. We can try to talk with them, to explain the why it doesn't work, and then they accept it or not. But that's how it is, Yeah.
What else can we do as coaches to better communicate to the public in general that there are no quick fixes, that, like you said, it is a medium to long term to lifelong journey? How do we get people that, they just want, in 2 months I want to be there because they have a wedding, because they have a thing, because they think that's how it's done? How do we counter that?
Well, for me, I think it was a lot. Of course we can talk with them, but I think online is quite important, because online you see a lot of radical stuff. You see a lot of, 12-week challenge and 12-week transformation. So communicating online what you think is correct in terms of nutrition training is quite important, and because you're connected with a lot of clients in your area, you don't see them you cannot see everyone personally. So at least online, you try to put down articles, blogs, to educate them a little bit in why certain things work and why certain things are maybe not the best option for them. So that's huge, because social media is flooded up with a lot of bullshit, unfortunately. So just to try to at least to get your opinion out there. That's one main thing coaches should do. I think it's coming more and more. In my opinion, you see a lot of coaches like doing like scientific stuff, evidence-based, and that's cool. But it should just go on, because online we can just touch a lot more people, because we cannot communicate with everyone who comes in here, unfortunately. And that results.
Is there a book or a number of books that you often recommend to clients?
Yes. There's one book I recommend to every client. It's The Compound Effect. The Compound Effect is this step-by-step approach over a long term that gives you significant results. And he explains it for terms of business, financially, sports, nutrition, whatever you want. I recommend this book to clients because it's just the approach we have actually to do small changes. You don't see necessarily directly what happens, but maybe a few months or even years from now, you see what it really changed in yourself or your bank account or financially, whatever you want. And that's one book. It's so easy written. It is the approach we have, step by step, long term. And I recommend that to a lot of clients. And if they read it, then they really understand a lot more. And then they understand the approaches over long term we have, and not the short term 3-month radical thing, And that was a book. It changed a lot for me, for my own approach. And as well, the clients were like, okay, listen, I read the book. I understood now the approach even better, why you're doing it. And I'm totally into it. And that's cool. So it's The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Yeah. I don't know if the book is in French, but it is in English. I don't know if it exists in French, but amazing book.
I'll definitely link it in the description below. What's maybe name one or a few books that have impacted you and your coaching, or maybe just you as a person in general?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it was the main book that impacted me was Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. The main takeaways for me were the red carpet policy, as I explained just before, meaning you want the client in your training that you really feel comfortable with. And if you don't feel comfortable with, you got to let them go. That's the main one takeaway. You should specialize yourself in one main area. For me, it started out with the shoulder. I had a lot of people with shoulder injuries. So I started out, specialization into shoulder, getting them out of pain, stronger, and so on. And from there, it went a little bit more general into, shoulder. Then somebody came with his knee, and then the back, and then the hip. And then it went like a general kind of approach to get just kind of this bigger grasp of clients, basically. But specialize yourself first. You're in your main area of interest. Choose your clients carefully. And the third thing is that he as well says you cannot know everything. So if there is something you don't know, you need to be honest about it. You need to assume it and tell to whoever asks you a question or to your client, listen, I don't have the answer for you. I will get the answer for you tomorrow. I'm going to send you an email over 50 pages if you want to. It's okay. So those 3 things were the main takeaways of that book, and that impacted me a lot because when you start out, you stress a lot. I don't know this. I don't know how to do that. What should I do with that kind of situation? And it kind of overwhelms you, unfortunately. And I read that book and I was like, oh, it's not that bad actually if you don't know anything, or if there are clients that you don't like. It is hard. It's not easy, but it was the most efficient for me as well. And that gave me a huge hop into my kind of direction at the moment.
You can't be everything to everybody, and you can't know everything either, right?
Of course not. No, of course not. And if people come who who want to have their program changed every day, they're not going to come to me because I want a progression. And if they change every day, there is no progression. Like not a significant progression that you can see. Or if somebody only wants to do cardio, they're not going to come to me because it's not my thing. So that's as well a thing to assume like, I'm doing this. And if the client wants it, I'll give it to him 100%. If he wants something else, or somebody comes to me, nutrition, but I'm vegan. Well, I'm not vegan, but the client is vegan, for example. it's hard for me to do it because I'm not vegan. Then I would maybe send them to somebody who does vegan coaching, for example. So we have to assume it like, listen, that's not my thing. Go to him, and that's a network then you create. Go to this coach. You want to have a triathlon or ultra? Go to this one, And that's where you connect with other coaches. You see how they work, and you just get this kind of network going where you help each other, and you just refer out, and that's cool. And the clients do understand. Everybody does understand at the end of the day why you can do that, and that's totally fine for them. At least you explained it to them already. Yeah.
What's your biggest advice for, say, CrossFitter training 4, 5, maybe 6 times a week, who is not making progress anymore? What's your biggest advice to them?
Yeah. Biggest advice is look at your recovery, so sleep. Look at your nutrition. Do you eat enough for your goals of your kind of activity? And the third thing is, if there's no progression, a program should be changed. And they should maybe seek out somebody who is specialized in, or a coach. A coach will give you a lot more progress in short term than somebody has on its own over years. So sleep well, eat enough. And if the program doesn't work, the program can always be changed, and you should adapt your training volume, frequency, whatever you're doing. And a lot of CrossFitters that do less, maybe instead of 6 times per week, only 4, and once per week, like anything like active recovery, and it goes back up again immediately because they start to recover from the training. They feel better, they feel less burned out, and that's it. So look at the recovery, change your program, and assume that maybe less more.
Still in the CrossFit context or model, when is it the right time to transition from WOD of the day kind of thing, workout of the day kind of setting where you just do what's written on the wall, to a more individualized and personalized program?
I think that comes down to the goals of each individual. A lot of people just want to do that. That's totally fine. Then they only do that. If somebody wants to go a little bit further or has specific goals, like he wants to do or she wants to do a competition or something like that, then maybe you should consider to work a little bit more specific. Don't maybe not stop all of the classes, all of the workouts they do, but just add something in that helps them towards the goal. That can be open gym session, programming from someone, personal training, whatever. It depends really on the goal. A lot of people are motivated. If you're motivated to go even further, then you should consider to be more specific. And programming in a box maybe is good, 100%, but maybe doesn't fulfill your goal. But that's the question. Everybody should ask themselves what they want, and then act, and then just do something about it.
Andreas, it's been great talking to you. If people want to work with you, learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, I'm here in CrossFit Rivera. It's between Lausanne and Vevey in Prehabilitation. I'm as well online under Andreas Gabauer _PT on Instagram or Andreas Gabauer Personal Training on Facebook. And if there are any questions, people can contact me anytime. I'm going to come back to them as fast as I can. Enjoy.
Thanks a lot for coming on the show, bud.
Thank you, Sean.
All right.
Have a good day. Thanks.